Hello, everyone. It's me, Man Alone, and I am a man alone. And today, going to be the first episode of a series of videos that I am calling A.S.M.R, or a Sleepy Man Roleplays. And the purpose with this video series, as opposed to some of the other ones I'm doing, is that my intent with this one is to choose games that are maybe a little more relaxing, not as intense, not too many grenades or flamethrowers involved, but instead some games that are more geared towards storytelling, more textural, and just overall games that would be nice to listen to as you drift off to sleep. Sometimes when I'm having trouble sleeping, I like to put a role-playing game on in the background just to listen to it. And so that's what I hope to provide here. And I invite you to get comfortable and join me. You can listen to as much as you want, and feel free to let your mind drift off, and I will slowly reduce the background music as we go on. But I just want to set the mood to start, because we're playing 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. There was, earlier this week, a poll that I put out asking folks which game they would like to see done on this series, and 1,000-Year-Old Vampire was the winner. I've had this book for a while, and I've never played it, and I really wanted to. And in my intro video for this channel, I stated that one of my goals was to play more journaling games, really understand what journaling games are about, really find the pleasure in them, and trying to see them in a different way, almost as a different sort of phenomenon than other role-playing games. And so I'm very excited to do this. In future episodes, I'm also going to do playthroughs for the second place, which was the Broken Cask, and this was a very narrow second place. This is by Derek A.S.M.R. It's about running an inn, and shouts out to Derek A.S.M.R, who provided me with an emergency PDF copy of this game, because my shipment kept getting delayed for this review, and so personally emailed me just to make sure that I had the PDF in time to do this review. And so I'm incredibly grateful, and also found out that Warhammer-wise, Derek Kamal is also a fan of Du Bois, the Orcs, which is 100% the correct and best faction to love in Warhammer 40k. So in honor of that, I'll have to remember to make sure I get an orc in some way involved in this inn when I do that. And then the other one was Colossal, by, I believe, Nick Angel. And so here's another game that combines some role-playing techniques as well as journaling. And so we'll get to all of these. I'm very excited to do this, to get into this. And I'm very excited to play 1,000-Year-Old Vampire with and for all of you. The way that we're going to do that, well, I'll let you know when we get to it. Let's not worry about that right now. So for those of you that don't know, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is the kind of book that you buy, really, you don't even need to know what it's about. You just see it on a shelf and you say, yeah, I'll take that one. And I would say it's so pretty that you don't even ever need to open it to get your money's worth. There's like this sort of gold leaf mesh on the front of it. Everything inside is a mixture of clippings or screenings of art from, I want to say, maybe the British Archives, British Museum Archives. And, well, we can look that up. But it's very interesting art style that does an incredible job at setting the mood for this, which is a lot of things all at once, right? There's some eeriness to it. There's maybe some humor to it, or dark humor. There's a bit of a lot of things that allude to fading memories or the passage of time and the sort of smudging of eraser across our memory that happens through time. And then to imagine what would it be like if instead of being the level of forgetful that we are when we're maybe in our 80s or 90s, to think about how much we might forget if we were in our 800s or 900s. And so this has just very rich flavor that tells a lot of the story in and of itself. And I really like it because it gets you right into the mood that is required for the solo role-playing mindset, which is to say, you're provided with these prompts, and these prompts could be pictures, they could be words, or in this book, they're literal prompts. Just hang up my headphones here. They're literal prompts that we won't open yet, we won't spoil. And then you take them, and you sort of take them as a gestalt, and you tell a story about them. And as an example of that, I think that this is a really good example of this, which I found to be a very compelling piece of art, which you have this sort of decayed corpse inside this coffin. There's beams of light coming out. There's obviously a very pious sister. And when I initially saw this, I thought that there was someone sneaking up behind her to attack her. And then as I looked at it again, the gaze of this gentleman is actually maybe here. And so maybe they're protecting this this sister, because even though she is filled with faith and conviction, this guy's not so much. And so maybe brought along a club just to make sure that, you know, if maybe a resurrection happens here, we want to make sure that it's more Lazarus and less Pet Cemetery. So just an overview of how this game is played. This is a game, I want to say the right way, by Tim Hutchings. And it is a solo game. And the mechanism is very different than other games that I've played. To play, you need a D10 and a D6. And what you use these dice for is not so much mechanics, but you essentially subtract the D10 from the D6, I believe. We'll check. And whether you get a negative or positive number, that's going to tell you how many prompts or pages you move forward. Let's just turn down the music just a little bit. Turn it up a little bit. Okay. And so if you get a positive number, you'll move ahead that many pages. If you get a negative number, obviously you'll move back. You cannot go further back than the first prompt. And also, when you encounter a prompt again, there are usually, I'll just kind of show you this really quick so we don't spoil it. There are 3 prompts on a page, and each time you go to that page, if you've already done one of the prompts, then you will move on to the next one down. And if you've done all 3 of them, you'll go to the next prompt. And so that's what the dice is for. You're going to move back and forth in this book. They're going to give you prompts. It might move you through time. It might cause you to make choices or tell something about yourself. But essentially, like the book says, this is a story of a vampire who's born long ago and lives so long that their memory and maybe identity even begins to fade. And so the resources in this game and the player sheet accordingly are much different than they are in other games. And if you look right here, you have memories, okay? And you can write 5 memories. You have skills, which could be anything. They can be sword fighting, or they can be throwing a quarter into a shot glass from across the bar. And you'll also do skill checks, But in this game, a skill check literally means you put a check mark over that skill. So you'll also have resources and characters, which can be either mortal or immortal. And you'll have marks, which are signs on your body that maybe tell stories or show your age. They could be scars. They could be sort of something more monstrous than that, something paranormal. And essentially what happens is, as you move along, you're going to construct memories. And memories are there. You can have 5 of them, each made up of 3 experiences. And in a way, a memory, this is a concept map. And so just let's suppose that the first memory is like your mother. That's one memory. And then you can have 3 experiences about your mother that are part of that memory. And you can have 4 more memories, each with 3. So a total of 15 experiences here. But as the prompts go on, you will be directed to maybe get a 6th memory. But because you can only hold 5, you have to get rid of one of them. And that includes all the experiences therein. If you have room in your resources, you can put a diary in there. And in that diary, you can have 4 memories. Okay? But that diary is a resource. It's an object. It's just like this. And so if I lived for 1,000 years, I don't know if I'd be able to hang on to 1,000-year-old vampire for that long. And so I might lose that. And then those memories are gone forever. But even when they go from memories to diary, they become less reliable because you lose the vivid sort of somatic memory of the experience, and they become a recall. And we can see this a little bit in our own lives. For instance, if you look at old photos, maybe you see a photo of your grade school or elementary school, whatever you call it, where you are. You look at that graduation from there, and you kind of remember that there, it's not like you doubt that picture. You see yourself in a cap and gown or whatever you wore, suit, dress. And you say, yes, I know that happened. But then if you stop and go, okay, think about that day from beginning to end, you'd be lucky if you could think of yourself like receiving your diploma. Most of that day is gone other than this picture. And so that diary becomes that. It is the truth about the event in as much as you have written about it. Okay. And so we'll move that there and make room for new memories, and memories will start to get cleared. The way that the game ends, I suppose it's possible to run into a prompt that ends the game. I don't know what that would look like, but that was in the instructions. But most of the time, once you use a skill or a resource, you can't use it again. And when you get a new, you'll need to use those. And if you don't have like a skill available, you'll need to get rid of a resource. And if you don't have a resource available, you'll need to get rid of a skill. And so the game ends when you no longer, here it says, the game ends if you are unable to check or lose a skill or resource when required to do so, or if a prompt tells you that the game has ended. So it's probably a little bit of luck involved in that, mostly luck really, unless you're able to anticipate what sort of skills might be advantageous in this game. But essentially, these prompts might say, okay, you're about to get in a sword fight, check a skill that's applicable, and it could be sword fighting, but it could even be less directly related. So it could say like, I'm really good at cooking, and then we could say, okay, well, I use a kitchen knife for the sword fight or whatever. I check that skill, and it can't be used again. And then there'll be other things that require me to lose a skill, right? And so when I have no skills or resources to lose or check, the game is over. I don't know if we'll get all the way there, but let's try it out, okay? So I thought we would start together and just do vampire creation. And I held off. I held off on reading this right here. I think I have a sense of what it is, to just full transparency, but just from the other instructions that I've read, but I figured I would go through vampire creation with you all for the first time. I really waffled on how I wanted to do this, because on one hand, I think it would be more thematic for me to write. But I also think that if I was sitting here writing, that would be a lot of wasted time, in a sense. Maybe not wasted, it's not the right word, but there'd be nothing happening. You would just, just wait for me to finish writing that, which could be good. But the other problem is I have a sort of, I'm left-handed, and I do have an old fracture here, so after a while, writing becomes quite painful. So what I wanted to try instead, and we'll see if this works, who knows, is to type. And to do that, so I didn't have to let's make sure we're adjusted here. There we go. Okay. So we're going to try using this keyboard here. And it's just this very cute little keyboard that I got. Let me move this out of the way. And because it's cute, cuteness doesn't always have the best function, and so it also is a little tough on the wrists. So here's a little carpal tunnel pad for that as well. And so to fill these out, there is an online Google form that is really quite good. And this is made by, let's see here, Kurt Reffling. It's a little bit difficult to read this type right here if you aren't on the computer. I can't really zoom in that well, but it's at twitter.com/Kurt Reffling. And Kurt has put in some examples here. They're kind of silly because the character used was the creator of the game, Tim Hutchins. And so we'll record characters here, skills here, resources here, marks, and then this is the real reason I think that I wanted to type, because ultimately, if it was, if the only thing that I had to do was to fill out, this character sheet, then it would be no problem. I could easily write this much. But in actuality, you have to write a sentence or two about every prompt. And I'll try to keep it brief, just, kind of write the notes that I need to remember what I'm talking about. But even so, I think it would get very difficult if I tried to handwrite everything out. And so what we'll do instead is just kind of type the prompt here and talk about the experience, and then try to fit it in with the memory. And so I guess the trick is that every memory has to, every experience has to fit into one of the active memories. And I think that's tough, right? So you have, these thematic memories should be pretty wide. It might be rather than saying my mother, I might say my family, so that I can fit multiple experiences in there. And there is a journaling form of this game that is intended to take several weeks. There's a letter writing version of the game, which you can play with 2 players and send letters to each other, which I think is very cool. And the thing that we're going to do is somewhere in the middle of that. And so I'm just going to kind of get rid of these here, just make sure my keyboard works. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll just, I think we'll read these as we go along. Oh, okay, so that's probably the first one. I don't know if I want to, oh good. It doesn't quite have the same edit undo things that a Mac does. Okay. And so, okay. Yeah, so we will write down the experience, say which memory it goes into, and then we can list if it goes to the diary. I don't know how well I'll be able to do this, but I'll give it my best shot and to sort of have a gamely attitude towards this. But the real important thing here is to, um, yeah, listen to this. There's no space on the spreadsheet for your vampire's name because it's part of their first experience and can be forgotten over time. So really, recording these things, the most important thing about it, is truly that we really immerse ourselves into this. And the thing that this log does more than anything is it's going to help us to keep track of these things, that especially things that we have lost, right? And so that is the primary importance. And so if we don't get everything right, if we're not able to group the experiences or something like that, that's okay. That's okay. We'll do the best that we can. And maybe if I don't do it right, maybe one of you wants to play it, and you'll have a better go at it. And please just let me know or post the video, and I'd love to see that. Okay. So first things first here, let's find out just about really quick about prompts. Okay. So I think it's very early, just to make sure we know. You will need a 10-sided die and a 6-sided die. And there's also, I guess, random number tables in appendix 2. Let's take a look at that. Oh yeah, that's interesting. So you can just kind of take a finger and put it on wherever here. Yeah, you could use a point a finger, drop a coin, or use a random method. Okay. The vampire whose chronicles you will record in this game is represented by 5 different traits: memories, skills, resources, characters, and marks. Almost every time you receive a prompt, one of your traits will be modified. For instance, you may be instructed to check a skill. To do so, you place a check mark next to that skill. Alternately, the prompt may cause you to lose a trait, which is indicated by striking it out with a line. Ensure that the lost trait stays readable, because you may refer back to it at some later time. At all times, follow the instructions given on the prompt. Memories and experiences are important moments that have shaped your vampire crystallized in writing. They make up the core of the vampire's self, the things they know and care about. An experience is a particular event. A memory is an arc of experiences that are tied together by subject or theme. Experiences cover a particular event, but the amount of time represented by that event might vary dramatically. So it could be a few seconds, it could be like 100 years. Almost every prompt will create an experience, and experiences eventually combine with one another to become memories. But there is only so much your vampire can remember. To reflect this limitation, there's only a finite amount of space for memories on your record sheet. Old memories will be lost over the course of the game, making room for new ones. You'll need to make difficult choices about which memories to preserve and which to forget. These hard decisions are the core of the game. And so it just says an experience is around like a single sentence. They give you some ideas on how to do that. Your vampire is allowed 5 memories. A memory contains up to 3 experiences. Each memory should be defined by a theme, trait, or other subject. Yeah, like I said, so it's kind of going to be concept mapping. Whenever a new experience doesn't fit into an existing memory, place it in a new memory, assuming one is available. Oh, okay. So older memories are lost when new experiences occur and you have no place to put them. So that kind of explains if we have an experience that doesn't quite fit thematically with any of the other ones, we have to get rid of one. And then when you get rid of it, you get rid of it. But we have 4 spots in the diary. These are some example experiences they give you. Really beautiful. It's really beautiful. Skills describe capabilities and characteristics of your vampire. They indicate what your vampire can do and what they might do. Swordplay, relaxing banter, operate heavy machinery, etc. And then when you use them, you check the skill. And it says mechanically, this indicates that the skill has been used. Narratively, a check skill gives you something to flavor your answers to later prompts. And so if an unchecked skills are what your vampire is capable of, check skills are what they have done. They're part of your vampire's being. They're who the vampire is. Of course, it's entirely possible that your vampire might have skills that you do not want to check. You may only check a skill once. If you're instructed to lose it, strike it out. Resources are assets or structures that are useful to your vampire, items that they value. Could be a diamond tiara, the castle Umbrecht, a business empire, a lucky penny, etc. And there's some that are called stationary resources. These are ones that can't be hauled away. So it'll be like a haunted cave, a huge statue, a hidden pit house, or a hereditary title to a land. So I think resources are only ones that you could strike. You don't. I don't know if you necessarily check a resource like you would a skill. And then you have characters. Some of them are mortal, some are immortal. Mortals are regular human beings. Immortals are supernatural beings for whom time has little meaning. Oh, this is interesting. I was thinking they would all have to be vampires. Some of them, they could be angels, deities, ghosts, scientific experiments gone wrong. And occasionally a mortal dies of old age. And then a mark is your visible indication of your vampire's undying state. When creating a mark, consider whether your vampire conceals it and how. Okay. So that should bring us to character creation. But once again, my original query here was how we play with the dice. And actually, I think now that is on the very last page. Roll your d10 and d6 and subtract the results of the d6 from that of the d10. Okay, so we take the d10 and subtract whatever the d6 was on. If the result is positive, move forward that many prompts. If it's negative, move backwards. And a 0 means you encounter the same prompt a second time. Okay, cool. So why don't we do vampire creation? Why the hell not? Let's go for it. The only thing that's going to be kind of difficult is making sure I have a space for all of this. Now, I am going to do some what I call, and I guess what the Marvel character Deadpool calls, some maximum effort role playing here, in that I'm going to try my best to not dawdle. And what I mean by that is, I might not be able to, I'm not going to zip through it. Obviously, this should be relaxing. But what I'm saying is I've seen some playthroughs on YouTube where people will turn off the camera for 35 minutes while they think of what the prompt means. And I don't want to shut off the camera. I'd like to play through this and be with you. But at the same time, I don't want to, put too long of a gap here, because I think that we can trust ourselves. We can trust our thoughts that we have about prompts, and it will also take some time to write these things out. So we'll just keep our head in the game and see what we come up with and try our best. Okay. All right. So the first thing here is vampire creation. Start by imagining a person in the distant past. A Roman emperor, a Mesopotamian midwife, a French knight. This person will become your vampire. Imagine when and where they were born and who they were in life. Start a memory with one experience that encapsulates their history. And then they give an example. This first experience is a little different than most experiences in that it's a broad summary of the vampire's life before becoming an undead thing. This experience will be slotted into the character's record's first memory. Next, okay, so that's the first thing. So we have to do a first experience. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Oh, okay. So we'll just put in this top slot. I see. This is why it said NA on this prompt, because these aren't actually prompts. These are just like the starting things. Silly. Okay. And this tracks how many times we've used it. Okay, so early life identity summary. So I suppose none of these examples here are fictional. I suppose I could do something fictional, but then I'll have the cognitive challenge of moving through time in a fictional universe. Okay. So if I wanted to do it here, I'm trying to think of what historical period. I don't. I'm. There's no historical period that I'm going to know everything about, or even much. But I'm just trying to think of one that I could create some stories from. Okay. Why don't we say Why don't we say the Crusades? Um, yeah. So I think Crusades started in 1100, around about. We'll say our guy is from England. All right, so I'll say I am. I almost wanted to say Edward, but I refuse. That is one first instinct that I'm not going to do because that first instinct comes from Twilight. So we'll say I am Vincent, and son of Henry. I was born in England. Oh, this is interesting. Is it not going to capture it for me? Oh, good. Okay. I thought I was just going to like extend that line. I was born in England in sometime in the 11th century in a place that you would now call Coventry. My father was a noble, if you could call it that. He technically, yeah, I don't. That's kind of weird. I got to keep typing out sideways. Okay, what's that? We'll go with it. He technically had a house and titles, but with them held little political influence. He was an envious man and channeled his feelings of worthlessness and inferiority into wrath, mostly taken out on me, my siblings, and my mother. I was the oldest, and as the oldest, I did what I thought was right. If he was going to hurt us, then I would learn how to fight. And I did that quite well. I'm going overboard here. I did that quite well. And and once he figured out that he couldn't take out his anger on us without answering to me first, he sublimated. No, that's not right. He transposed most of his anger into a bottle. When the well, who cares? I think it was Pope Urban. When Pope Urban called the First Crusade, I took up arms. No, I took the call to see the world and bring our Lord's righteous wrath onto those who would deign occupy our holy land. My father was ecstatic, bragging to everyone about his crusading son. I mostly did it to get away from him. It's way too much. That's fine. I was supposed to start with a memory with one experience that encapsulates my history. That's like 50 experiences. All right, let me work out my mind muscle here for a second. Let's take this back. Let's take this back, because you know what? Too much information might put us in a corner too early. So we'll pull a mulligan on that one. 1 second. I am Vincent, son of Henry. I was born in England sometime in the 11th century in a place you would now call Coventry. I learned to fight from an early age and proudly took up sword and shield on behalf of Pope Urban's call to reclaim our holy lands. Bam. Okay, good. The experience will be slotted into the character's record's first memory. And so I guess it's memory ID 1. Okay, I see. So there's no like memory bank here. We just list whatever memory that is. Okay. Next, create at least 3 mortals and add them to the vampire's record sheet. These mortals will have a relationship with your vampire relatives, friends, and lovers, enemies, mentors, debtors, anything else appropriate for the time. Describe them each with a few words. Know that these characters can and should be very important, but will not be around for long. Okay. So why don't we do... Let's do Olivia. That's actually the name of someone close to me. I don't want to do that. So why don't we say Veronica. You know what? How about this one? Theodora. There we go. And we'll say that this is my youngest sister, a miracle of a human who overcame an early brush with the plague, surviving on God's grace alone so that she could share her beautiful soul with all of the world. And then we'll do Henry, my father, a coward, a bastard, and a drunk, lives his life through me and lives his life through me because he never lived a life of his own. And then what do we say? Bartholomew. And Bartholomew is a friend, a best friend from Coventry who I befriended in school and who is sojourning to Rome with me to receive the papal blessing before going to battle. Okay. Sounds good. Give your vampire to be 3 skills fitting for their lot in life and 3 resources they obtain while still mortal. Remember, resources can be almost anything, big or small. A resource is a resource, whether it's an obsidian knife or a fleet of warships. All right. So why don't we say for skills, we'll say, I want to say sword. No, I'll say it. Sword fighting. Let's say martial. No, too broad. Agile in heavy plate armor. Can move around and fight even while wearing heavy armaments. Let's say that the other one is maybe he's expertise. We'll say lay expertise on the plague. Learned all he could when his little sister Theodora fell ill. And we'll also say intimidation. Learned from a bully. Learned from a bully, my father, and then honed that very skill against its progenitor. So, father was intimidating, bullied, and then apparently, because this guy's pretty big, learned how to bully, and then bullied his dad, who sounds kind of like a nasty fellow. And yes, it's true. Like whatever I'm doing this now, I almost guarantee that I won't keep being obsessive about this because it just won't be possible. That first impression I formed of the father is like, there's no way I was going to be able to like not have that. It was already in my mind. So now we have to have 3 resources. So why don't we say a love note. Let's not even say that. A note, a folded note that makes me glad. I like that. Okay. And a short sword called Wren for this bird sigil on the scabbard. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but that sounds good. And we'll also do what's something that was done what did they have back then other than tuberculosis? How about a bottle of fermented wine that was given that was the last, we'll just say a bottle of fermented wine. Leave it at that. Okay. And then create 3 more experiences. Oh boy. Okay. With one experience being entered into a separate, with one experience each being entered into a separate memory. Each of these experiences should combine 2 of your vampire's traits. So it should combine like so we should just use these things we just wrote. And I think I kind of actually did that. You know, a couple of them. So like lay expertise on the plague, I kind of did that. So this is showing me right now that I should have just kept these simple. But that's okay. So what we'll do is the first memory will be as Theodora lay coughing and gasping in bed, I stole a silver piece from my father to venture to London to speak to a reliquary, a surgeon, about the plague. I don't know if that really works, but that's kind of funny. And then what else can we do with Bartholomew? And okay, so we'll say Bartholomew challenged me to races every Sunday after Mass, and for years I lost until I began to train in full suited armor. Okay, so trains in full suited armor. These are advanced techniques used in the NFL now, right? It's like person trains like with on 20% of 20% less oxygen once they're on the field. They feel like they're breathing like a vortex of oxygen. Okay. And one more here. Bottle of fermented wine. Why don't we do that? Okay. What do we say? Before leaving for Rome, I look at my drunkard father sprawled on the floor and decide I will steal from him his precious bottle of fermented wine, and that it was only fair given all he had stolen from me. Cool. Okay. Lastly, create an immortal. This is the creature that gifted or cursed your vampire with unlife. Create a mark and an experience that explains how your vampire became a creature of the night. Okay. I can do that. So we'll say I met an immortal, and I'm going to put like a little I next to him so we know that's an immortal. And we'll say Captain Fletcher. And Captain Fletcher was a sea captain who came to port one night as the townsfolk celebrated our holy departure the following day. Okay. So we'll say there was much celebration and revelry the night before Bartholomew and I made road to Rome. A man named Captain Fletcher arrived saying he had come from Scotland bringing precious whiskeys. No, wait, whiskey's not right. Scotch. Precious scotches. Is that right? Who cares? I would guess so, right? Scotch. I don't drink, so. Okay. He had come from Scotland bringing precious scotches and would feel it an honor if two holy soldiers were to be the first to sip it. We began to play cards, or whatever their version of cards were back then. And Fletcher lost a lot of money. He proposed a more dangerous game and preyed upon our adolescent egos preyed upon our manliness, I guess they would say. I was about to say machismo, but maybe. Preyed upon our manliness. The game was to take a paring knife and quickly stab it down between fingers. I was so drunk at that point. I only recall missing my mark so severely that my blood rushed out onto the table. I remember looking at Captain Fletcher's eyes, and they were glowing red. He said I needed to have the maiden's kiss to close it, which he said was an old sea farer's ritual. So drunk was I that I did not even think it weird that he healed my finger by sticking it into his mouth. Once again, way too much, but I can't help myself. What am I going to do? Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Is that this Fletcher guy comes to town, big guy, and I just like the idea suddenly. At first I was like, wow, this is silly, but then I'm like, I kind of like the idea of it's always the neck What if the vampire bite went on the finger? Okay, so now we have Captain Fletcher, and so I am going to say, this gives me a mark of scars from sharp tooth punctures arrayed around my left ring finger and a scar along the inside from the bite of a knife. So yeah, I guess I don't know why I did that. I think it just occurred to me that there might be some symbolism laid in there, that there's a scar on the wedding finger, or the merit ring finger, right? The wedding finger's fine. And yeah, I think that could hold some potential there. Is that so this is very weird, right? But they're very drunk, and he cuts his finger, and Fletcher says, "Oh, boy, you need the kiss of the sea." And he says, "What is that?" "Oh, it's an old seafarer's thing. You just put you..." And he's kind of, licking his lips like there's something very needful in him. And he says, "Oh, let me show you. Don't be shy. I've been out there a long time. We don't have any doctors out there. We got to take care of our cuts ourselves." And he takes my finger, and I just look over at Bartholomew maybe, and he's passed out. And then I look, and I see this guy kind of smiling at me as he sinks his teeth into my fingers, and it's one of those pictures that it's like a Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas moment. I'm going, what the hell is going on? And I just pass out. And the next day I wake up, and Bartholomew says, "Get up, let's go." And we're in some seaside inn that we don't know how we got there. And I don't even know if Coventry is by the sea. So please, if you're from the UK, have mercy on me. And he says, "We got to go. We got to ship out now." And that's when I see Henry, my dad, passed out on the floor. And I take his fermented wine. So now I have finished with the vampire. I have 3 skills, check. 3 resources, check. At least 3 mortals, 1 immortal, and 1 experience in each of their 5 memories. I would say so. So those are the 5 memories right now. We got Theodora. We have just me, where I grew up. My best friend Bartholomew. Henry. And Fletcher. So that's kind of easy peasy right now. Oops. Gotta make sure that I put this in the right place here. Okay. Because it's related to people, but let's see what happens. So I know that we start at prompt 1, but I saw this in another comment in another video that somebody had said you don't automatically do number 1, you just start there and we go from there. So I suppose we should just try it, right? And so we got 3 minus 1 is 2. So we start at 1 and go to 3. Let's try it. So we have to keep track of the passage of time. It's a vampire story, so if that's not something you're interested in, you're not a blood person, not a vampire person, not a horror person, thank you for checking out my video, and you can move on. I don't think I'll be getting like NC-17 in this video or anything, but it is my active imagination. I have not played this before, so proceed at your own risk. But if you do, thanks. So we go 1, 2. Okay. A loved one discovers your condition and works to help you. Oh, I should add that from now on, I'm going to try my level best to just write some notes to remember each experience and not write it all out. I'm just going to narrate it so that we can move more quickly. A loved one discovers your condition and works to help you. Create a resource which represents their assistance. Create a mortal character if none are available. So we definitely have a mortal character. And okay. So create a resource. Now, my question is, how many resources is there a limit to how many resources and skills that I can have at a time? And I'm going to look that up now. So I'm not seeing any limitations on skills or resources, only that when I use them, they're gone. Well, when I use a skill, it's checked and I can't use it again. So we'll just try that. All right. So I don't know about all of you, but I'm thinking that the person who is most likely to want to try and help me is Theodora. And maybe as I'm leaving with my father's fermented wine, Theodora says, Vincent White, right, runs after me. And she says, you can't go. You can't go. And I say, why not? She says, you're not well. I can see there's a pallor in your face. And you've always had a very protective relationship with Theodora. Oops. Because, Theodora was sick, right? And so this is prompt 3. And this is the first time we're going to be here. Theodora was always sick. And so I spend a lot of time saying, oh, Theodora, you don't have to worry about me. I know that I had a long night of drinking. And Theodora says, like, no, you're not well. I can see that something has changed in you. And so we'll say Theodora tries to help. And gives me let's say I know. Okay. Gives me a bracelet of protection. Okay, this is cool. All right, so here's what I'm going to say. She gives me this bracelet of protection, and this is going to go, by the way, in memory 2. I'm very excited to get a bunch of junk out of here because there's just like a lot of this. So this goes to memory 2 about Theodora, and we'll put it in the diary if we need to. So the bracelet, a bracelet made of my own shirts from Theodora. Okay, let me explain. So, Theodora got sick. You love Theodora. You have a tenderness towards her. She's youngest. She's one of these kids, central casting says, get a kid who's got a big smile and sings a song in their heart. And you would dote on Theodora because the drunk father and maybe the mother was sick too, couldn't do anything. And you'd watch over her every night. And sometimes you'd fall asleep in a chair next to her bed. And being sick like she was probably up and down all night. And she loved you so much that she just wanted to be close to you and just loved having you there. And just to kind of touch you because you're her big brother, she cared about you a lot. She would just pull little corners of threads off your shirt or your coat, like just in the corner, and would just keep these and would keep these little threads she pulled from you so that whenever you were away from her, she had like a little piece of her big brother. And then over the years, she kind of like, made them into a bracelet of all your own shirts. And she says, I'm going to give you this bracelet. It's going to protect you because you've changed and you need protection now, like the protection you've given me. There's something wrong with you. And you don't really know what she's talking about, or maybe you do. Maybe some part of you knows, but I really like that. So she tries her best. That's the best. She's older now, but she's still a kid, right? And so, all right, we're off to a good start. 3 minus 3 is 0. Okay, so when we roll a 0, we stay on the same page, but we go a prompt down. And it says, oh man. You manipulate this mortal into committing atrocious deeds on your behalf. What do you do when they quail at these awful tasks? Take the skills. Humans are tools. All right. I'm going to... What I'm trying to figure out right now is this contiguous? Like, do these run together? So when it says a loved one discovers your condition and works to help you, now I have to manipulate this one. I'll tell you what, I don't want to do that, and so I'm going to do it. Because I'm going to follow the role play here. All right, I'm not going to reject the organ. I love Theodora, but if you think about it, it's the same as like a drug user or anything. I'll manipulate anybody. I'll do whatever I need to. So, so I'm walking now, and I walk away from Theodora, and Bartholomew catches up with me, and he says, wow, well, first of all, I have to take the skill. Humans are tools. Humans are tools. Okay. So you manipulate this mortal into committing atrocious deeds on your behalf. What do you do when they quail at these awful tasks? Okay. She gives me the bracelet made out of my shirt thread. And I put it on. And it does seem to have some sort of effect on me. It's probably just, I'm probably just imagining that, but Is it possible that something could be imbued with so much love that it could change us, that it could heal us? Did you not do that for her? Did that bracelet not heal her? And this warm feeling that's extending from your wrist, from the bracelet, travels up your arm, and suddenly the warmth is warmer and warmer, and now it's a heat, and it's radiating across your shoulder and solar plexus. And before you even make it onto the road for the crusade, you fall to your knees and look down in horror at your finger. And it's pulsating, this finger that has the bites on it. And the last thing, again, you remember, you have sweat all over your face. And it's Bartholomew saying, are you okay? Are you okay? Hey, are you okay? You wake up in bed and you feel for the first time the hunger, right? This vampiric hunger. And you've never felt a thirst or a hunger like this before. It is so urgent and so intense and so powerful that you couldn't imagine needing something so bad. The considerations that any of us would make about what is right or wrong, what is good or bad, doesn't matter. It is like being on fire. And despite that, you are ill. You are weak, pale. And just like you did for her, Theodora is sitting by your bedside. And you know in your mind, I need to feed. I need to feed. And I need to feed on something now. And you, in the last shred, the last inch of your humanity that is able to peek through this need, you see Theodora sitting there, and you know that if you don't get her away from you, it's going to be her. And so you do the most brutal sort of calculation that a human can do, that that no human has done or never, that we know of. And you say you need blood. You need it fast. You need it from anyone but this person. Who do you get it from? You don't want to do it to anybody, but who do you get it from? And you turn to Theodora and you say, go get Dad. And she sees something in you. This child has been very close to the veil, right? And so this child has a spiritual maturity that is beyond others. And she sees, she's no fan of her father. Her father abandoned her while she was sick, but she sees in your eyes there's something unholy in you. And she says no. And you beg her, Theodora, go get our father. And she's tears in her eyes. She says, no, you're sick. There's something wrong. And out of a desperation, God help you, maybe a frustration, you wrench her by her hair and throw her across the room. And she hits the door so hard that clunk, she just drops. And to your wonderful luck, this was enough to summon, the person closest to the door, your father, and suddenly you realize you don't care. This is what you have to do. As soon as that door opens, your teeth are sinking in. And the door opens. You put your teeth in the neck of Bartholomew, who was actually waiting outside the door. And you only realize this after you've drained half the blood in his body. And rubbing the sleep from his eyes, your father looks at you and looks at Bartholomew and looks at Theodora and says, I always knew there was something wrong in you, boy. I always knew there was something wrong in you. And now you've fed, right? Your mind is back and you behold what you've done and you say, oh God. And you flee. You flee. And so, boy, oh boy, how the hell am I going to capture that in a memory? So let's say that this is a Theodora memory. I think she featured there most prominently. So what we're going to do, boy, this is not very good scroll on this page, but okay. So what we'll do is we'll say that this is prompt 3 again. And this is B. And we'll say, it keeps auto-correcting to Theodore. I'm not going to correct that. I have a feeling that's going to keep happening. The hunger takes over. Theodora won't get away from me, won't get father out of desperation, push her too hard and knock her out. The sound rouses who I thought was not Father Henry, my father, but alas, it was poor Bartholomew, who was the first one upon whom I fed, caught by my drunkard father. I fled in shame. That's how it goes these vampire days and vampire nights. This is a little bit weird because it does involve, it involved Theodora actually, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think this is probably involves Bartholomew, right? Because he's dead. So, yeah, I think we'll put it at 3. Okay. Poor guy. Poor everyone. Everyone involved, other than the dad. Okay, let's roll. Let's roll the dice. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even show all of you that sheet as I was doing it. That's my bad. So all you just watch me typing. All right. Well, that's what I wrote. Here we go. We'll roll again, and we're gonna go. Oh my goodness. 1 minus 1. Okay. Guess I'll do the third prompt again. What are the odds of that? At the end of the mortal's life, you convert them into a mindless meat machine, an undying thing from which you feed. What regrets do you have? Change the character to a resource. Check a skill. This is... I'm having a hard time with this. I imagine that they don't think I'm going to roll on the same prompt this quickly. But maybe, I mean, because it would be hard to imagine my character doing this so soon. That seems really, really an escalation that that's an unreasonable escalation, but let's try to make it make sense. Boy, I really hate this mindless meat machine. Okay, here's what we're going to say. I'll read it again. Man, this book goes hard, huh? It's got a interesting choice for a first sleepy time solo play. Hopefully, if you're already asleep and you hear the words mindless meat machine, you're just thinking of some really good... you're just thinking of something like a George Foreman grill or some sort of carnival conveyor belt that's just pumping out cheeseburgers or something, a mindless meat machine. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to leap forward. 5 years. We'll figure it out. I'm going to leap forward some years. And I'm ashamed. You know, I went from being someone who was about to go to the Crusades to somebody who just, like, pushed the person I love the most in the world, banged their head into a door, fed on my friend, and I'm not going to any crusade, right? So I'm like the shame of this town. And I have spent 3 years wandering and hating myself. And the hating of myself has it's amplified by the fact that I've tried to again and again to not feed, and I can't stop myself. And so every time, you know, it's addiction in a way. It's addiction, and there's this succumbing to the addiction, and then the extreme shame and the extreme guilt. And so, but this is an addiction that there's no support groups for this. It's no one that's going to understand this, right? And so I just eventually give myself over to the depravity of it. I don't even try to resist it anymore. I feel like I'm doomed, spiritually doomed. And it's almost like just being intoxicated with it. And eventually one day, I hear that a man moved his family from Coventry to wherever I am now, and that he is a very pious man, and his name is Henry, Pastor Father Henry. And he he found the light of God after his son, who he, in his words, never did anything but love his son as much as he could. This son of his was a killer of the worst kind, depraved, cannibalistic, maybe he said. And through this, he found God. And I hear about this, and the more they're talking about this person, the more I realize they're talking about my father. And so I approach these people talking about it, and they kind of recoil because, I don't look great, having just sort of been feeding for years. But I also am not somebody that takes no for an answer. And so I'm actually going to check a skill. They don't want to tell me that. And I do this thing, right? This thing in which I make myself seem 10 times my normal size. And I maybe even bare my teeth. And I say, you're going to tell me what you just said. And you're going to tell me where this guy is. And you're going to show me where he is. And you're going to do it right now. And it's kind of like, yeah, no problem, mister. Like, we'll do it. And they, they're very scared. They bring you to the house. And you see inside the window, you see this, your father in like church garbs. And all of a sudden you realize it just all comes together, that this man is the source of all of this. You never wanted to be a crusader. You would have never wanted to leave home, leave your sister, if it wasn't for the fact that he was so miserable, that your mother spent all of those years bedbound, that he abused you, and that's why you became someone who wanted to fight. And all of a sudden, all the rage and all the self-hatred and the fury accumulated over those years, it comes to a focus point, and you see this hypocrite through the window abandon his family again, and this time in the guise of holiness, and something deep, primordial in you snaps, and you realize, why should I go around feeding on, killing all of these other people when I can just feed on him? And so that's what you do. And you wait till he comes back to the sacristy, and you wait till he hangs up his priestly garbs, and you sneak up behind him, and you put a bag over his head, and you drag him to a hideout, and you strap him down, and when you take the bag off, you say, "Oh, Father, what should I call you now? Is it Father, or just one Father?" And he looks at you, and, this is not a good guy, but you are horrifying by this point. Think of how sort of unraveled anyone looks when they're in this state of such hysteria, sort of just, but add to that, you're a vampire vagabond who's been on the run for 3 years, and you essentially, normally when you're feeding on somebody, you can't stop yourself. But the only thing more powerful in this moment than your need to feed is your hatred for this man. And so you cut yourself off at around 50% each time, so that his body still has enough to keep him alive, to regenerate his blood. And you keep him there for months. And maybe he's still there. So we checked the skill. That was very good. We did very good here because we did everything the prompt needed. Let me show you this. So it says that just to recap that, I kind of went on a tangent. At the end of the mortal's life, you convert them into a mindless meat machine. Maybe not the end of their life, but a little later. An undying thing from which you feed. What regrets do you have? None. Change the character to a resource. Or at least I have no regrets right now. I'm in this very depraved state. So we'll change over Henry to a resource. And we checked a skill, which was intimidation. I think that went well. Not for Henry. Not for Henry, but for the game. Please know that none of the actions of this vampire represent any desires of my own or opinions of my own. These are the opinions of Vincent of Coventry alone. So now I guess we turn Father Henry the meat machine into a resource. It's so interesting. That goes hard. That's brutal, man. Okay. Remember at the beginning when I said, I don't think I'll go NC-17, but I don't know any other way to go. And the prompt says turn someone into a mindless meat machine. Okay, so this is again prompt 3, and this prompt is now depleted. So if we roll it again, thank goodness we can move on to a new prompt. And we'll just say slip into depraved feeding frenzy over 3 years, eventually re-find my father after intimidating 2 locals who were talking about him. He is now a priest. This deeply focuses my anger, and I decide to capture him and to direct all of my blood feeding needs onto him as my deathless captive. Brutal. So this is we want to say, I mean, yeah, this is Henry. This is the Henry memory, so this would be, this is 4. Yeah, that's 4. Oh, cool. Automatically colors that. Very nice. All right. So, yeah, we're at about an hour and a half, so I'm going to do one more. This is really interesting. I'm already seeing, like, the narrative power of this. Not the kind of stories I love. I don't like necessarily want things to go from 0 to 60 that fast, but boy, look at this whole thing we've got. Okay. 1. So you are exposed and flee to a neighboring region. Lose any stationary resources and check a skill. A mortal flees with you. What new name do you adopt among these strangers? All right. This is great. So I'm not even going to... well, you know what? I am going to type this because honestly, I think that we could probably carry this on at some point. All right. So let's talk it through. You are exposed. All right. So let's just say those 2 guys who I intimidated, they find me. They see my father meat machine in my shanty that I built out in the forest or something. I lose any stationary resources. Let's see if I have any stationary resources. A folded note, a short sword, bottle of wine, a bracelet. Well, I guess I lose Father Henry, the meat machine. That's a stationary resource. Okay. Good. And check a skill. We already used intimidation. Agile and heavy plate armor. Lay expertise on the plague. Intimidation we use. Humans are tools. Okay. I think I've got it. So, here's what we're going to do. We are found out by these two guys that months ago showed me father. You know, they've been trying to find this blessed father. And one night they hear his muffled screams or whatever. And they come back and pitchforks, torches, all that stuff. And by this time, you know, they're calling me a demon or a beast or whatever that is. And I see all of them. And I realize that they've surrounded this little lean-to that I've been living in. They've surrounded it on all sides. And I realize that I really don't have anything there. You know, all I've been doing is kind of feeding and then sleeping in a blood-sated haze. And I look around, anything to defend myself with. And it turns out that, like, the only thing I can think of is my father. And so I take my short sword and I stand him up and I put it to his back. And I walk out and I say, you know, if anyone touches me, if anyone tries to capture me or whatever, I'm going to run this through this man's back. And so I'm moving through the crowd and people are kind of, you know, they want to get at me. They're disgusted. They got their torches and everything. And finally the maybe whatever, I have the bloodied handkerchief that's around his mouth or whatever that I've been keeping him from people from hearing his screams. It falls down and your father screams out, "Kill this heretic, this demon scourge." And this is like enough, you know, your God demands it. Maybe offers an indulgence. Anyone who kills this guy is eternal life in paradise. And this emboldens the mob to move forward on you. And being trapped as you are in the ultimate act of using humans as tools, you decide you just run your sword through your father and lift him and run him through the crowd as sort of a battering ram / shield. And people are so horrified by this and aghast at your strength and just the gore of it all. You're able to flee, and you see more people coming and more people. And finally, someone on horseback comes and they say, "Quick, you know, come up here." And on the horse you escape. They give you passage on a ship. And of course, you may have guessed it by now, the person takes off their hood and reveals themselves to be Theodora, who said that they came here, they were made to come here with their father, and they came with the townspeople, and as soon as they saw that it was you, they knew that you were in trouble and that you needed to get out of there. And so she takes you to a ship, and you say, I don't know how to thank you, you know. And she says, well, we'll figure that out because I'm coming with you. And you both board the ship together and head to France. That was 4 prompts. Think about the possibility of this book. That was 4 prompts. Incredible. Thank you for taking the time with me to go through that. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully at some point we can revisit this. And the next one is going to be, again, we're going to take a look at the broken cask. So I'll probably record that sometime this week. I also have another Inquisitor's Log scheduled. I'm having so much fun. And if you got it this far, why don't you give me a subscribe? I've already have 400 people subscribe. I can't believe it. I hope this was enjoyable. I have a feeling that it may have given more people nightmares than it has helped them sleep. But sometimes, to be honest, when I'm having trouble sleeping, I look up really scary YouTube videos. So maybe that works for you as well. Thank you again. And I don't know, like, what should we say here? Just make sure that you don't get turned into a mindless meat machine. Thanks, everybody.